A golf course looks like grass and a few flags. The real number is $5 to $40 million just to build one. That's before you've sold a single round of golf. And that's before water, which in some deserts runs 300 million gallons per course every single year. Golf feels timeless. Green fairways, quiet mornings, a sport people have played since the 1400s. Underneath that calm surface sits one of the most brutal capital structures in American real estate. Land is scarce. Water is expensive. Margins are thin. And here's the part nobody tells you on the first tee. Most owners aren't even really selling golf. Golf courses are almost never just golf businesses. They're either real estate amortization tools or standalone cash machines propped up by everything except the golf itself. Two completely different businesses, wearing the same green jacket. Confuse them, and you go broke slowly, then all at once. Business number one is the amenity model. Developers build a course to sell houses around it, at a premium, then treat the course as a marketing expense they're willing to lose money on forever. Business number two is the operating model. Here, the course stands alone. It has to generate enough green fees, memberships, and food revenue to cover a genuinely brutal fixed cost base, with no housing development to bail it out. The amenity model took over the industry in the 1990s. By that decade, roughly 60% of new U.S. golf courses were built purely to anchor a housing project. Lots on the fairways sold at a real premium. The course itself was never expected to turn a profit on its own books. The operating model is a different animal entirely. It needs volume, pricing power, and diversified revenue streams, or it simply dies. And a staggering number of them have died. Nearly 1,500 golf courses or country clubs have closed across the United States since 2014 alone. So which business are you actually in? Most owners never ask that question until it's too late. And by the time the answer arrives, it usually shows up as a foreclosure notice, not a phone call. Here's the twist that makes this worse. You can start in one model and get trapped in the other. Build a course as an amenity, watch the housing sell out, and suddenly you're the last owner standing, running an operating business you never budgeted for. And the industry around you is anything but stable. Golf course closures outpaced new openings every single year from 2006 through 2020, a two-decade correction that wiped out roughly 8% of total U.S. supply. Compare that to the 44% growth in facilities during the building boom that preceded it, from 1986 to 2005. That correction has finally slowed. In 2024, only 29 new golf courses opened nationwide, the most since 2010, and 80% of them were private clubs chasing high-dues members rather than walk-in traffic. Course closures that same year hit their lowest level in 2 decades. Participation is climbing too. A record 28.1 million people played golf in 2024, the highest number since 2008, with 545 million total rounds recorded nationwide. That's the 7th straight year of growth. But rising participation doesn't automatically rescue a bad balance sheet, and plenty of courses are about to learn that the hard way. Before any of that, you need land. A regulation 18-hole course requires 150 to 200 acres, minimum, and that acreage has to drain properly, sit on interesting terrain, and stay mostly clear of wetlands. Land acquisition alone typically eats 40 to 50% of a project's total budget. In a competitive market near a growing city, that percentage climbs even higher, sometimes past 60%. Construction is its own monster, separate from the dirt underneath it. A standard 18-hole course now runs $5 to $15 million to build. A luxury project can blow straight past $25 million, sometimes reaching $40 million once water features and premium turf enter the plan. Break it down per hole, and you're looking at $400,000 to $2.5 million per hole, depending on turf quality, drainage complexity, and terrain. Trump International Golf Links in Scotland reportedly cost over $120 million to build in 2012, driven by importing sand to sculpt entire dunes from scratch. Architect fees alone can run $50,000 to $500,000, and that's before a single bulldozer moves an inch of soil. A landscape designer adds another $20,000 to $150,000. A geotechnical engineer, evaluating whether the ground can even support the design, costs $10,000 to $30,000 more. Environmental compliance adds another $200,000 to $1 million on top, covering wetland mitigation, stream relocation, and habitat studies that regulators simply won't waive, no matter how good your architect's sketches look. Add it up, and a basic public course starts near $5 million. A championship-caliber private club can clear $30 million before the clubhouse doors ever open to a single member. And building takes 18 to 30 months from permit to first tee shot. That's 2.5 years of carrying costs, interest payments, and zero revenue before a single green fee gets collected. Compare that to a 9-hole course, which runs $2 to $7 million, roughly a third of the capital commitment of a full layout. It's why so many developers now phase construction, opening 9 holes first and building the back 9 only once cash flow allows it, cutting upfront financing needs by as much as 40 to 60%. Real projects prove the range holds up. Salish Cliffs Golf Club in Washington State, opened in 2011, cost approximately $6.5 million to build, clubhouse and environmental mitigation included. Schoolhouse 9 in Virginia, completed in 2019, cost around $3 million. A deliberately modest build focused on affordability over prestige. Both sit firmly inside the public course range. Neither one is chasing championship-caliber turf or a signature architect's name on the scorecard. And that restraint is exactly what kept their budgets under control. Contrast that against a mid-tier private development, where enhanced practice facilities, elevated turf varieties, and advanced drainage alone can push per-hole costs past $1 million. The gap between a public course and a private one isn't cosmetic. It's a multi-million-dollar decision made before construction even begins. So how do you actually pay for all of this? You borrow. And that debt has a way of coming due at the worst possible moment in the cycle. Take Trump National Doral in Miami. The buyer financed the purchase and a $250 million renovation with $125 million in loans from Deutsche Bank, completed between 2013 and 2016, on a resort that already carried 72 holes and 4 separate championship courses. The resort had once thrown off $12 million a year in net operating income. That sounds healthy, until you realize that's barely a 10% cash return against $125 million in principal alone before you've paid $1 of interest. By 2022, that Deutsche Bank loan was maturing. The bank wanted out, unwilling to renew. A smaller lender, Axos Bank, stepped in that May and refinanced the full $125 million balance, keeping the asset alive under new terms. That's the refinancing trap in one sentence. The asset doesn't need to fail for the owner to be in danger. The loan simply needs to mature at the wrong moment in the credit cycle, when the last lender walks away. Here's a second story, smaller scale, identical lesson. Stony Brook West, a golf course community near Orlando, was built to anchor new homes starting in 2000, with the course as the marquee selling point. The course changed hands 4 times during golf's national downturn after the 2008 recession. In 2010, a real estate startup bought it outright for $2.4 million. By 2019, after the course had closed without warning and gone to weeds, that same property sold for just $416,000. A 79% collapse in value in 9 years, on paper alone. Residential property values around it dropped as much as 11% the year the course finally shut down. Homeowners who'd paid a premium for a fairway view were now staring at overgrown scrub through their back windows. Eventually, the Homeowners Association bought the shuttered course back for roughly $2 million, just to control its fate. Every homeowner now pays an $85 annual assessment for the next 20 years just to fix what debt and neglect destroyed. 2 very different owners, one shared mechanism at work underneath. Golf courses carry debt structure like any other commercial real estate asset. But golf courses generate operating cash flow that almost never matches real estate-sized debt loads, and lenders eventually notice. By the time Deutsche Bank finally stepped back from the broader golf and hotel relationship, its remaining exposure across those properties had been whittled down from roughly $340 million to just $45 million. The rest either repaid, sold off, or absorbed by other lenders willing to take on the risk. That's what a decade of constant refinancing actually looks like from the inside. Not one clean payoff, but a slow, expensive game of musical chairs between banks. Say you clear construction and financing without a scratch. Now the real bleeding starts. Annual operations forever, with no finish line in sight. Maintenance alone runs $557,000 to over $1 million a year, depending on whether you're running a daily fee course, a semi-private club, or a full private club. Labor eats 56% of that entire maintenance budget before you've mowed a single fairway or raked a single bunker. Private clubs are the worst of it. averaging $1,084,000 annually just to keep the turf tournament ready year-round. Municipal courses run leaner, closer to $620,000, but they're working with smaller crews, older equipment, and far less room for error. Then there's water, the expense nobody budgets for correctly until the first summer bill arrives. In California's Coachella Valley alone, 120 golf courses consume roughly 37 billion gallons of water every single year. A single course inside that district uses an average of 300 million gallons annually, nearly 3 times what a coastal California course typically needs to stay green. That's enough water, across the whole valley, to fill about 56,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools every single year. In hot inland climates like the desert Southwest, courses can burn through 6 acre-feet of water per acre annually, 6 times the usage rate of a course sitting in a cooler, wetter region. Multiply that across 150 irrigated acres, and water alone becomes a 6-figure line item before Memorial Day weekend even arrives. Insurance is its own headache. Liability exposure runs high on a property where errant shots regularly cross into neighboring yards. One family won a $5 million settlement after their home was struck by more than 600 golf balls over the years. Security patrols, cart fleet leases, irrigation system upkeep, none of that shows up in the glossy brochure handed to prospective new members. And every one of those costs keeps climbing year over year, whether members show up to play or stay home entirely. Staffing runs deeper than the maintenance crew alone. A functioning club needs a golf professional, a food and beverage team, a clubhouse manager, front desk staff, and an events coordinator if it wants any shot at hosting weddings or corporate outings. Every one of those salaries hits the books in January, long before the first tournament fee arrives in June. 545 million rounds were played across America in 2024, a record number. That sounds like a wave of cash. But more rounds also means more stress on the turf, faster equipment wear, and heavier overtime for greenkeeping staff working to keep pace with demand. Busy isn't always the same thing as profitable. Revenue has to cover all of it. Green fees typically run $20 to $500 a round, depending on market and prestige. Membership dues at private clubs range from $2,000 to $50,000 or more annually, plus a hefty upfront initiation fee just to join the waitlist. Food and beverage carries a 20 to 30% markup, and at most private clubs, it's mandatory spending built directly into the membership contract, whether a member shows up to dinner or not. Even with every one of those revenue levers pulled at once, most courses only clear $500,000 to $1 million in annual profit. High-end clubs with diversified event and hospitality income can reach $2 million or more, but that ceiling requires near-flawless execution across every single department, every single year, with no room for a bad season or a broken irrigation main. So the question stops being, can a golf course make money? It clearly can. The real question is whether the specific owner standing in front of you has structured the asset to survive the years when it doesn't. So how does anyone actually make money here? For very different playbooks exist, and only some of them survive contact with reality. Playbook 1 is the loss leader real estate subsidy, and it's a trap dressed up as a strategy. River Plantation, outside Houston, sold homes in the 1960s and 1970s with automatic country club membership built into the price of every lot. The golf course itself carried no permanent restriction requiring it to stay a golf course forever, only a temporary one lasting 20 years. Once that protection period lapsed, the land got sold for redevelopment, exactly as originally structured. The lesson lands hard. If the course was never designed to profit on its own, it eventually gets converted, and the homeowners who paid a premium for the view get left holding nothing but a lawsuit and a shrinking property value. Playbook 2 is the private equity roll-up, and it's the model that actually scales into real, durable profit. In July 2017, Apollo Global Management agreed to buy ClubCorp, one of the largest club operators in America, for $1.1 billion in cash, at $17.12 a share, a 30.7% premium over the prior trading price. ClubCorp ran more than 200 golf, country, business, and sports clubs across 27 states, plus Mexico and China, serving over 430,000 dues-paying members at the time of the deal. The play was never really golf. It was recurring membership revenue, aggregated at scale, bundled with real estate holdings, run like a subscription business that happens to have fairways attached to it. Bulk purchasing power on turf equipment, shared back-office costs spread across 200 properties, and predictable annual dues make the math work in a way a single standalone course simply never can. It's worth noting ClubCorp had gone public just 4 years earlier, in a 2013 IPO priced at $14 a share, chasing what one industry commentator later called a golf course roll-up strategy that never fully delivered for public shareholders. Apollo bought the platform anyway, betting that private ownership, without quarterly earnings pressure, could finally make the consolidation math work. Playbook 3 is the trophy asset leverage model, and it's the riskiest of the four by a wide margin. This is Trump National Doral in miniature. Buy a marquee property, load it with debt secured against brand value rather than verified cash flow, then keep refinancing before each maturity date hits the calendar. It works right up until a lender finally says no. Deutsche Bank's total exposure across that same golf and hotel portfolio reportedly climbed to around $340 million at its peak, spread across multiple properties, before the bank began stepping back from the relationship entirely and other lenders had to fill the gap. Playbook 4 throws out golf altogether and sells entertainment instead. Topgolf reframed the whole category from scratch, and the numbers show it. Its venues average roughly $17 million in annual revenue each, built on a fraction of the acreage of traditional 18-hole layout would demand, with food and beverage sales alone accounting for nearly half of total income. Only about a third of Topgolf's venue revenue actually comes from hitting golf balls. The rest comes from parties, corporate events, and bar tabs on an ordinary Tuesday night. A single Topgolf venue costs roughly $15 to $60 million to develop, in the same range as a luxury private course. But the return profile isn't close. Topgolf's parent company posted $1.76 billion in venue revenue in 2023 alone, off fewer than 90 locations nationwide, a scale no traditional golf operator has ever come close to matching. It isn't really a golf course at all. It's a bar with a driving range bolted onto the side, and it generates more revenue per acre than almost any regulation 18-hole course ever built. For playbooks, one brutal filter separating them. Only 2 of them consistently survive long-term: the membership roll-up and the entertainment pivot. The other 2 are betting on land appreciation or personal brand equity to bail out a business that structurally cannot cash flow on its own terms. And here's the number that should worry every prospective owner staring at a glossy investment deck. Even in a genuinely healthy year for golf, with course closures at their lowest rate in 2 decades, roughly 1,500 clubs have still shut their doors nationwide since 2014. The industry itself is recovering fast, though. The share of courses reporting themselves as financially healthy has climbed from roughly a third in 2009 to about 70% today, a genuine turnaround after the lost decade that followed the 2008 crash. The industry isn't dying anymore, but it remains far from forgiving, and the businesses that confused a lifestyle for a balance sheet are still the ones that end up in foreclosure filings. Strip away the clubhouse, the pro shop, and the leaderboard on the wall, and here's what's actually left: 150 acres of collateral, a construction loan, and a water bill that never stops arriving. Every owner who's ever made real money on a golf course figured that out early. The ones who lost everything treated the fairway like the product, instead of the asset sitting underneath it. A golf course was never really a sport. It's real estate, wearing a green jacket, hoping nobody checks the deed. The grass isn't the product. The land underneath it always was.